What is going on, everybody? My name is Jeff Lightsy Jr. here with the Black Boss Channel with Victory Formation. Thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe, and the notification bell because we upload every single day. Now, today, I'm here to talk about the Jackson State offensive line. The Jackson State offensive line, as we all know, was an issue this past season. But I am here today to tell you that the JSU O line could be the most massive offensive line in all of FCS football. I'm going to talk about that right after the bumper. Stay tuned. What up, what up, everybody? Be sure to hit that thumbs up button as you come and join the live. We are letting a few more people get into the live if you're catching this on a live stream. Shout out what city you're from. Shout out what city you're from and your favorite HBCU in the chat. Let me know your favorite city and your favorite HBCU in the chat. I see Linnell. He says, I think JSU is going to win it all next year with this big offensive line coming in. This offensive line, Lionel, is huge. I'm glad you said big because it is really, really big. I'm talking about it. I think it's going to be the biggest O line in all of FCS, not just all of FCS. Shout out to CFL, man. And I'm going to reference CFL podcast. Go check out the CFL podcast. Kobe is a beast. Thanks to him, we got some other information. I'm going to reference one of his videos. Be sure to go check that out for sure because he is a beast over there at the CFL podcast. It says thoughts on the new JSU locker room. It's big. It's huge because that's what they need. This is the thing is Coach Prime has already come out and said he's not looking for guys that are looking for all the flashy new stuff. But to have some of the flashy new stuff is nice. Like to have some of that stuff is really nice and it does not hurt at all. So we got some cities and some favorite HBCUs in here. Fort Worth, Texas. Shout out to Tommy Carter, Fort Worth, Texas, and Langston University. Hey, Langston University, a good one. Hey, we got Greensboro, North Carolina in the building. Shout out to William Humphrey, North Carolina A&T. I really wish North Carolina A&T didn't leave the MEAC. Can somebody explain that to me? Why did North Carolina A&T leave the MEAC and go to the Big South? I would really love to know. I would have loved for North Carolina A&T, who has a ton of NFL alums, to still be in the MEAC and compete for a Celebration Bowl, fight out with South Carolina State and Howard and some of those other ones. But they left the MEAC and now they're there. We got Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Shout out to Richard, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and JSU. Got Fort Myers, Florida, and FAMU. Hey, FAMU. Coach Willie Simmons and FAMU are really, really getting some things done down there. We got Florida Memorial. Perez's favorite is Florida Memorial. Okay, so for those of you who are here, we're here today to talk about the offensive line of Jackson State. So my guy CFL, Kobe Orr, did a really good job of breaking down the offensive linemen. Kobe actually broke some news. Some of you may have already known this. I didn't know this, but Kobe on the CFL podcast said the Jackson State is expecting 10 new offensive linemen, 10 new, whether it's via the transfer portal, high school, JUCO, whatever, but they're expecting 10 new offensive linemen to be on campus before the start of fall camp. And that is huge because we all know that the weakness of Jackson State this past season was the offensive line. Shador Sanders had some issues with the offensive line. I think personally they went empty too many times. Too many times with a struggling offensive line and a run game that wasn't that great. They went empty too many times. But Coach Prime said at the end of the Celebration Bowl, when Jablonski and some of those other guys from South Carolina State was getting after his boys, getting after his literal boy, his son, he was like, yo, we have issues. We know what our issues are, and we're working right now to fix those issues. Now, if you take what he said at that podium and what my guy Kobe Orr at the CFL podcast said, and you combine those two, he said we got issues. The number one issue is the offensive line, and I think running back. We're fixing those issues. Kobe's saying they're bringing in 10 offensive linemen. We're gonna break down some of these guys and how big these guys are. So there are currently 5 commitments for Jackson State. 5 out of the 10. Kobe's telling us it's going to be 10. There's 5 committed already. Simi Molau, Evan Henry, Christian Henderson, Shantavius Vardaman, and Jasper Freeze. These are the 5 guys that are committed. Listen to how big these guys are. Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments. Listen to how big these guys are. Simi is 6'7". Evan Henry is 6'3" in the 290s. Christian Henderson is 6'5", 325. Shantarius Vardaman is 6'5", 315. And Jasper Freeze is 6'7", 330. Yeah, those are some big boys. Those were some big boys. And JJ, you're right. Shedeur was able to not only throw for 3,000 yards, not have a crazy, crazy good touchdown to interception ratio, not only win SWAC Freshman of the Year, and not only win Jerry Rice Award, which is the top freshman of the FCS. He did all of that behind an offensive line that wasn't stellar. In all 5 positions, all 5 spots on the O-line will be up for grabs. When you have guys that are 6'7", 6'3", 6'5", 6'5", 6'7", you bring in 3 offensive linemen, 6'7", it looks like you're putting together a basketball team and not a football team. Like Coach Prime was not exaggerating when he said he was going to fix that offensive line, and that's exactly what's taking place. But see, here's the thing. Because these guys are so big. We're talking 6'5" and above, except for Evan Henry, who'll play guard, which you typically don't want your guards around the 6'5" range. 6'3" is good for the guards, but they're all averaging 310 plus. Your offensive line is going to be able to move people. See, I talked about this a little bit when I had Tyson Bordeaux on the show, and Gramblin's bringing in like 3 or 4 guys to their receiver room that are 6'5" and above. That's different. That's next level. You're going to be able to dominate teams and be able to make some plays that other teams just can't defend, just can't stop, simply because you have guys that are bigger than them. Hugh Jackson, I heard him when he was on Off Script. Shout out to Off Script. He was on Off Scripts, and he was like, the bigger man wins most of the time in the NFL. He's a bigger is better when it comes to football. Bigger is better, period. And that's just how it is. I'm not just making this up. You can call it fair or unfair, but bigger is better when it comes to football. And Jackson State bringing in 3 guys that are 6'7", 2 more guys that are 6'5", and a guard that's going to be 6'3" that was all Sun Belt, that was all conference at his previous school, UL Monroe. That's how you fix your problems. See, Travis Hunter and Kevin Coleman, and rightfully so, but they get all the headlines because they are the glitz and glamour and what some people will call the icing of the cake. Right? Because wide receiver, cornerback, those are essential. You need those things. But some people, they're a little pizzazz. They're flashy. They're fun. They're the skill positions. They're the ones that score the touchdowns. They're the ones that get their names called on the radio and called on television. But the trenches is how you win football games. The trenches is how you build a program. The trenches is how you become dominant. See, you can overwhelm a team. It's hard to overwhelm a team with receivers and cornerbacks. You can do a lot of great things, like some Malachi Wideman overwhelmed some teams when he was leading the SWAC in touchdowns. But the trenches is how you just hit somebody in the mouth and there's nothing they can do about it. And albeit all of these guys from Jackson State aren't going to start. I just told you they brought in. There's 5. They're committed right now. CFL Kobe Orr is telling us that there are going to be 5 more. But the trenches is how you dominate teams. And when you have this size, you can, quite frankly, overwhelm teams in the SWAC. You can overwhelm teams in the SWAC when you have 6'7", 330 pounds, 6'7", 310 pounds, 6'5", 325 pounds, 6'5", 315 pounds. You're going to overwhelm some teams because think about it. Coach Prime, who's played at the highest level, who's played in the NFL, he literally told us, he said the biggest difference between the competition here at Jackson State, FCS football, SWAC football, whatever, and a Power 5 program is the linemen. Those are the biggest differences. I can take my skill guys. We can go play 7-on-7. We can compete with anybody. But those linemen are the ones that get the job done. Those linemen are the ones that are game wreckers. Those linemen are the ones that are game changers, that are franchise changers, game records, whatever. CFL tells us Evan Henry won 80% of his matchups in 9 out of the 10 games he played last year and led the team in pancakes. He is who I'm excited about. Simi was Pac-12 honorable mention, is a guy I have high hope for. So Evan I had actually on this platform, and Evan is, first of all, if you haven't seen that video, check that out. Evan is an amazing kid. He is really ready to go play football. One thing Evan told me when he was on this show, if you haven't seen this interview, is that Coach Prime, the motivator that he is, he said, I just wanted to run through a wall for that dude. The man literally told me, he said, yo, Coach Prime didn't really have to recruit me. I seen what they were doing. I got excited about the moves that are being made. And this was before Travis Hunter. This was before Kevin Coleman. This was before some of these big, bright headliner type names had committed. He's like, yo, I seen that. And I was like, yo, that's the dude I'm trying to go play for. That's the man that I'm trying to go do. And you have a guy with that kind of mindset in the trenches on the O-line, yeah, you're going to have some dominant play. Yes, you are going to have some dominant play. And because, and this isn't just something that Jackson State is doing. Coach Hugh Jackson and Gramblin's doing the same thing. They know that these men aren't dumb. These men are very, very smart. And these men have a ton of experience at the NFL level. They understand how games are won at the highest level. So why doesn't that apply at the college level? It does. The games are won at the highest level in the trenches. You can't protect your quarterback. You can have a Shedeur Sanders. You can have a Felix Harper or an Aqeel Glass or a Patrick Mahomes or a Joe Montana, Tom Brady, whoever. You can have the best quarterback in the history of the world. You can't protect them. You don't have a chance. You don't have a chance. Some of you, let's be honest, some of you would say Jackson State had better skill players than South Carolina State. Some of you would say Jackson State had better skill players than South Carolina State. I would be one of those people. I'd say, yeah, if I just, took name for name, player for player, they probably had better skill players. The problem was South Carolina State could block Jackson State, albeit James Houston did have 2 sacks in the Celebration Bowl. But for the most part, they could block Jackson State, and Jackson State couldn't block South Carolina State. That's what the Celebration Bowl came down to. I mean, if we're being honest, the MVP of the Celebration Bowl, I think it ended up going to Shaq Davis. But the two of the biggest pieces of the reason why South Carolina State won the Celebration Bowl is because they could block Jackson State, and Jackson State couldn't block them. That's trenches play. That has nothing to do with who was the quarterback of either team. It has nothing to do with who were the receivers of either team. That is trenches play. That's what took place. And that is why the Celebration Bowl, for some of us, the HBCU National Championship, that's how it was decided. It was decided about the trenches. It was decided in that front seven. It was decided, with center, guard, tackle combination. That is how that is playing. But when you bring in this kind of size and you have more, first of all, you have depth. Because that's the thing about offensive linemen. I hate to say it, and it's just you can just chalk it up to football. Someone's going to get hurt. Someone is not going to be healthy all, 12, 13, 14, however many games you play all season. Someone is going to get hurt when you play college football, period. So when you bring in this rotation of linemen and you plan on replacing 4/5 of your offensive line anyway, maybe all 5 offensive linemen. I don't know. The one guy me and CFL both seem to think has a grip. I'm going to say a grip on his position. I ain't saying a tight grip. It ain't a tight grip at all. But a grip on his position is Tony Gray. Tony Gray was the left tackle this past year. Tony Gray seemed to do a pretty decent job. Even the right tackle seemed to do a decent job at times for Jackson State. But those interior linemen, I know Evan Henry's getting a spot. Because those interior linemen, the center guard combination, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad for Jackson State. Someone says trenches warfare is where the battles are. It is. Why do you guys think? Who are some of the highest paid people in the NFL? Obviously, it's the quarterbacks. But outside of quarterbacks, you got pass rushers, left tackles. Pass rushers and left tackles. Even when we talk NFL draft, you don't see running backs go in the top 5 anymore for real. You don't see receivers really go in the top 5, top 10 too much anymore. But one consistent you will always see when it comes to the NFL draft. Quarterbacks will go in the top 5. Left tackles will go in the top 5. Pass rushers will go in the top 5. Last I checked, tackles and pass rushers play in the what? They play in the trenches. That's how the NFL sees it. Let's look up. I mean, let's just do it. Let's look up a 2022 NFL mock draft, and let's just see. And this is why all of this relates, and this will tell you why Jackson State upgrading that O line, why them upgrading that O line is so crucial. It's so crucial. Let me share my screen. I'm going to pull up. This is from CBS Sports. This is their 2022 NFL mock draft. Won't you look at that? The first pick is a 6'7", 350-pound left tackle from Alabama and Evan Neal. The number 2 pick is a 6'6", 265 defensive end from Michigan named Aiden Hutchinson. Number 3 is what? Another trenches player and Kayvon Thibodeau, 6'5", 258 pounds. Now, what's critical is because look at this. I want you guys to look at the size of these 2 players. Now, these are 2 guys. Typically, you don't see guys of their caliber in the Aiden Hutchinson and the Kayvon Thibodeau in the SWAC. But the reason why it's beneficial to look at their size as far as height and weight is because these are the guys. See, when Coach Prime says he's trying to build a dominant FCS program, a dominant HBCU program, a dominant Jackson State program, in his mind, he's thinking, what if my guys had to block men like this? Who can I put out there that would be equivalent to block a guy like this? If I had my O-line, would we be able to match up with an Aiden Hutchinson or a Kayvon Thibodeau? Would we be able to? Just simply off size alone. Are my guys going to be overwhelmed if somehow, some way, we took a game against the Michigan, took a game against the Oregon, took a game against the whoever, a USC or an Ole Miss or a Mississippi State? Would my guys be able to, if we look mano a mano, looked each other in the eye, would my guys be looking like this, squinting, or would my guys be able to look you right in the face? I think that's the mindset he's taking to his offensive line. And that matters. That matters because that is what's going to protect his most valuable asset, which is his son, the starting quarterback, QB1, Shedeur Sanders. So now someone says, this is interesting. Someone says Tony Gray will not be the left tackle next year. There's a greater chance he will probably not start. That's bold, Corey. That's bold because Tony Gray was your best offensive lineman last. He was your best offensive lineman last year. So for you to think that not only will he not, you're already saying he's not going to be your starting left tackle. You're already saying that, hey, he's not going to be starting left tackle. I also don't think he's not even going to start. That's bold. That's a bold statement. But I am looking at 6'7", 6'5", 325, 6'5", 315, 6'7", 330, 6'7", 310. So maybe that's not as bold of a statement as I think. But that's tough. That's a tough bold statement. Someone says all the awards were won by black players. 1 SWAC Coach of the Year, 2 SWAC players, a player from East Washington. So that's nice. That was nice. That was at the FCS Stats Award. The FCS Stats Award looked to go really, really nice. You said Javon Curse changed the draft game. Yeah, I mean, it only makes sense. Honestly, it goes back further than Javon Curse, I'll say. Maybe as far as like measurables, Javon Curse maybe did that. But the left tackles became a premier position. It became a premier position because of Lawrence Taylor. Because Lawrence and Taylor, they give you kind of like a brief insight about it when you watch the movie Blindside. You can feel however you want about Blindside, but when you watch the movie Blindside, they kind of give you the breakdown of the history of the left tackle, how the left tackle wasn't really much, and then Lawrence Taylor came about, and then it was like, whoa, we all need a left tackle because even if Lawrence Taylor rushes our right tackle and come to make a sack, at least our quarterback can see him. At least he gets a dead vision. It's like, okay, do whatever. But from the back, with our back turned, our quarterback can't see Lawrence Taylor. Nah, we need our best offensive lineman over there. And that's kind of how the evolution of the left tackle, because most quarterbacks are right-handed. And so when you're right-handed, your back is towards the left tackle. And that's why the left tackle became so important. But this size, someone says Tony Gray will be a beast at guard. I can see it. I can see it because Tony Gray is 6'5", I want to say Tony Gray is 6'5". So just imagine, guys. I really just want to imagine this. Yeah, Tony Gray is 6'5", 310. We can look at his player profile together. Well, let's look. I mean, I might as well show you guys. I'm looking at it myself. Think about this. This is why loading up on the offensive line is so big. So if Tony Gray, say he gets moved to guard, say you move him to guard at like your left guard, and you have a guy like Evan Henry at your right guard, and you you have these other Jasper Freeze, who's 6'7", 330, and was a top 50 player in JUCO. You have him at one of your tackles. So now you're looking at an offensive line. This is before you assigned a left tackle or a center. If Tony Gray and Evan Henry are at your guards, it's just, we're playing hypothetical, guys. Why not? Let's just do it. A 6'3" guard who was an all-conference as far as Sun Belt, and a 6'5" guard, 6'5", 310 at guard. I think Shantavius Vardaman, 6'5", 315. I think he's going to find his way on that starting lineup, in that starting five somewhere. So he's 6'5", 315. I think because he's established with his JUCO experience, his experience at UAB. Like, this offensive line is going to be massive. It is going, and the number one problem Jackson State had this season, it really wasn't even pass protection. It was moving people in the run game. Yes, CFL, moving people in the run game. I've been on here talking about how Jackson State needs to upgrade the offensive line and needs to upgrade the running back position. Now, pass protection wasn't great. Let's not tweak. Pass protection wasn't the best, but pass protection was better than the run game. They couldn't move people. People were moving them backwards. I saw points in time at different games, specifically the Southern game and the Valley game. Believe it or not, the undersized defensive lineman of Mississippi Valley was having their way with Jackson State offensive line. They had their way with them. And that is a problem because Valley is an undersized school anyway. And so for you to be getting moved backwards instead of bullying people forward, Coach Prom took offense to that. He was like, yo, I played for the Cowboys in the 90s. And for folks that know the Cowboys in the 90s, y'all know. Let me know if you know in the chat, in the comments. Y'all know the Cowboys in the 90s used to move people. Led by Nate Newton, who was one of Deion Sanders' best friends. They used to move people. Nate Newton, he was featured really heavily in that Madden documentary. Why? Because he was a Madden type guy and he used to move folks. Coach Prime, he wants a bunch of Nate Newtons on his team. He went out and got him a bunch of Nate Newtons, and he's gonna bring in 10 new guys. We're gonna see some transfers because come spring, it's a few folks that are gonna leave spring ball from Jackson State and hit the portal. They're gonna hit the portal. We're in here really deep, guys. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button. We're in here really, really deep. But they're gonna hit the portal because if you're bringing in 10 offensive linemen, Kobe, let me know, CFL, there's only 5 spots. There's a center, 2 guards, that's 3, tackle. And if you're bringing in 10 offensive linemen, and we think Tony Gray may or may not have one of those spots, you're looking at 10 guys fighting for 4 spots. 10 guys fighting for 4 spots. Now, Corey seems to have, the quarterback has to know passing lanes. This is true. Now, he is the truth. He does have to know passing lanes. You got to remember, Shedeur was just a true freshman. And we have to also take into account, we have to, let's think about this, because I don't think a lot of people think about this when it comes to Shedeur. Shedeur played, hold on. Shedeur played quarterback for Jackson State. You guys got to think about this. During the spring, now I don't know what the average attendance during the spring for Jackson State was, but it was above, I know it was above 35,000. I think it was roughly about 35,000 people. During the spring, Shedeur didn't play during the spring, but he would go into the stadiums, and he admitted this. It's like it was the most people I'd ever seen at a game. Shedeur played at a school, Trinity Christian, which is a very, very small private school that plays in a very, very small private school district in Dallas, Texas, in a suburb of Dallas, Texas. So when he came to Jackson State and played this fall, when you guys were packing out the vet, 40,000, 42,000 on average, 42,000 on average, 50,000 for the Alcorn, 60,000 for homecoming. When you guys were packing out the vet, 50, 60,000, those were the most fans he had ever played in front of in his entire life. And the man is a true freshman. He's 18, 19 years old. His first year starting as a college quarterback. You got to cut him some slack. And I think personally, I think they put him in 5 wide. And he was doing this without a running game and without a very good offensive line. Without a running game and without a very good offensive line in front of 40, 50, 60,000 people every week. And let's remember, because of the hype and because of the comments he made himself, because of the comments he made himself and because of the hype Jackson State came into that game, Jackson State was circled on everybody's schedule this year. Jackson State was circled on Alcorns. Jackson State was circled on Southerns, was circled on Valleys. It was everybody's Super Bowl. Jackson State, and they will have an even bigger target this past year, but all of that was put on the shoulders of a true freshman quarterback. So that was a lot. And all he did with all of that stuff I just named, had never played in front of that many people before ever in life, didn't have that great of a running game, didn't have that great of an offensive line. 40, 50,000 watched him every single week. All he did, everybody's Super Bowl, every single time Jackson State showed up to their stadium or they showed up to the vet, all he did was go out there and have the best interception touchdown ratio in the SWAC, win SWAC Freshman of the Year, and win the FCS Freshman of the Year. That's all he did. Now, if that ain't impressive, I don't know what impressive is. If that ain't impressive, I don't know what impressive is. Can he improve? Absolutely. Absolutely, he has to improve. He has to improve. But all he did was those things. I mean, let me know. Let me know in the chat. Somebody, please, let me know in the comments. Who else was doing that as a true freshman? With all the hype, with all the pressure, with the lack of offensive linemen, with the lack of a running game, with an offensive coordinator switch a few games into the season, with all of that man still went out there and won SWAC Freshman of the Year, was in contention for SWAC Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, and won FCS Freshman of the Year. All of that happened. Now, somebody can tell me, well, but yeah, you can nitpick all you want. That's just, the facts are the facts. And don't get me wrong, Shedeur put some of that pressure on himself. If you guys remember, when he was at SWAC Media Day, and they said, yo, Shedeur, what is it? I think it was the guys at HBCU Game Day. I think they asked him, they were like, yo, Shedeur, what does it look like when you guys play a SWAC team? He said, it equates a blowout. I will remember that verbatim forever, because I remember hearing that and was like, oh my God. That man said it equates to a blowout. What is you saying? Like, because he said, you got to look at it like this. Those other guys go to Grambling, they go to Southern, they go to Mississippi Valley, FAMU, whatever. It's like those guys go to those schools because they have to. They got an offer from Grambling and nowhere else. They got an offer from Valley and nowhere else. They got an offer from Alabama State and nowhere else. He said, we chose to go to Jackson State because we wanted to. We was at South Carolina and at UFC and at Missouri, Florida, UCF, at Florida Atlantic, Houston, Ohio. We was at all these places. But we decided to come to Jackson State, Louisville. But those other guys, they ain't matching up with us. And I was like, yo, when he said that, I was like, yo, buddy just put a big old target, not only on his back, but on Jackson State's back. That is huge. That is huge. And when the offense got out to that shaky start, 7 points against FAMU and only 7 points against UL Monroe, and it was really shaky. And they made that switch to TC Taylor. And good things came. But the offensive line was still shaky. Let me get to some of you guys' comments. You guys are, shout out to y'all, man. Y'all filling it up in the chat. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button. It says JSU's running backs, they just didn't have good linemen. That side, Tyson. JSU's running backs, well, Tyson Alexander didn't play in the fall. He didn't play in the fall. JSU's running backs, I like J.D. Martin. Santee Marshall's good. He's just very small. Santee Marshall's really small. And Pickett is a good bruiser. He just doesn't have the most speed. I would like for them to upgrade the running back position. You've upgraded everything else. You went out and you got wide receivers. You got more wide. You have the deepest wide receiver room in all of FCS football easily. So you upgraded the wide receiver. I wouldn't be surprised if one of those wide receivers ended up transitioning to running back because somebody's not going to play. Like we came on here talking about offensive linemen, but let's talk about those wide receivers. Somebody's not going to play because it is so many wide receivers on Jackson State. Like so many wide receivers. You guys seen the wide receivers outside of, let's name them. I can name them. Quay Davis, which is coming off a red shirt. Ala Brown, which is he didn't play, coming off a red shirt. Then you got returning Malachi Wideman. You got returning Shane Hooks. You have Key Mullins, which will be a tight end, wide receiver. You're bringing in, you got the 2 transfers from Indiana. You got another receiver that's in this recruiting class, and you're bringing in Kevin Coleman. And then Travis Hunter has already been told he's going to play both ways. It's a lot of wide receivers. It's a whole lot of wide receivers. Now, someone ain't going to play. So I would not be surprised if one of those wide receivers with some of that speed and agility and whatever switches to running back. Because one thing about Jackson State, they will, if you can play, and I will say this about JSU. You can't say this about every single college football program. If you can play, they're going to find a way to put you on the field. They do not care about what classification you are. And Mark Pope, thank you, Kobe. Mark Pope and Corey Reed, oh my God, that's 12 receivers. That's 12 receivers. But one thing I will say about JSU, if you can play, you will see the field. They do not discriminate about who sees the field and who doesn't. Cameron Silman Craig, true freshman. And I thought they were pretty good at defensive back. Come in, starts day one. Shador Sanders, obviously, starts day one. There's other folks. Santee Marshall, who was the video choreographer. Santee Marshall was not on the football team. He was taking video of the football team. Hey, you can play, kid? Boom, gets in there. He plays. He's one of the best running backs they had on the team. If you can play, they will find you a spot on the field, and they don't mind changing you positions. James Houston came to Jackson State as an inside linebacker. James Houston left Jackson State as one of the premier pass rushers in college football. Did he not? Did he not? Somebody let me know in the chat. Was 16, 17 and a half sacks? You're a premier pass rusher in college football. James Houston came to Jackson State as one thing and left and will get drafted as another thing. That means putting talent out there on the field. That is just putting the best guys out there on the field. Malachi Wideman, he wasn't playing those first few games. JSU offense needed a boost. Boom. They put Malachi Wideman out there. He becomes one of the top receivers in the SWAC. Leads the country in touchdowns, or leads the conference in touchdowns. So someone wrote him out. He looked at it. He said, Reed, Hooks, Rucker. Oh, I forgot about Trevante Rucker. That's 13. Davis, Brown, Pope, Williams. Oh, my God. These are the receivers. That is a ton of receivers. That is a ton of receivers. But I'm here to talk about linemen because I like linemen play. I like trenches play. JSU was able to be so dominant this past season because of the defensive linemen. Their defensive, the reason why JSU was as good as it wasn't because Shador was a quarterback, as good as he was. It wasn't because of Shador. JSU on defense suffocated people. James Houston leading the conference in sacks, or second in the conference in sacks, with Katron Evans, who added another, Katron Evans was a big play. Antoine Owen, Katron Evans, James Houston to go along with Niles Gaddy on the D-line, outside linebacker, and the linebackers with Keontae Miller and Keontae Hampton and Aubrey Miller. They suffocated people. They suffocated folks. Folks couldn't block them. And so that mindset, that suffocation that they were giving on the defensive side of the ball, Coach Prime's trying to bring to the offensive side of the ball. Because the offensive side of the ball was the complete opposite. You had a super superior, super elite quarterback, some really good wide receivers, like really good. Malachi Wideman, I think, is the next He can play at the next level. Trevante Rucker, I think, can really, really play. I have Trevante Rucker. If I had to pick a player that's going to break out next year, it's going to be true sophomore Trevante Rucker at the wide receiver position. It's a bunch of other receivers, though. Don't get me wrong. Kevin Coleman's going to want his touches. Mark Pope's going to want his touches. And I'm hearing Kobe told me on the CFL podcast that Quay Davis is the real deal. Kobe and some others have come out and said Quay Davis is the real deal. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. But Trevante Rucker is a guy that I saw make plays last year that I think can really, really be good. But none of that matters. None of all those, those receivers, none of that stuff matters if you can't block anybody. But 6'7", 6'3", 6'5", 6'5", 6'7", and 6'7" at the offensive lineman, all over 300 pounds. That looks like they can change some things. Now, I'm looking at some of your comments. Someone says JSU's receiver room look like an SEC. Absolutely. Absolutely, James. It is looking humongous. It looks like some ball players. It's looking legit, that receiver room. And we just named like 12 of them. They're going to have some studs. I mean, all of those guys you're gonna pull out. And we know Malachi's a stud. We already know that. We pretty much know Trevante's a stud. Shane Hooks can play. We know they can play. And they might not even see the field. Because if some of these guys come in, Quay Davis, the two transfers from Indiana or whatever, somebody going to have to sit the bench. Now, I am Big Bones telling me Quay Davis is the best one. What makes you so confident about that? Because I've heard this before. I've been told Quay Davis, out of all those receivers we just named, I have been told that Quay Davis is the best one. You're not the first person to say this. You are not the first person. Now, if we look at, and now, you can take recruiting rankings with a grain of salt, right? Like you can believe what you want to believe with recruiting rankings. It's not everything. It's not everything, but it's something. It's something. It's not everything, but it's what? Something. Everybody write something in the chat. It's something. Now, if you look at the all-time commits to Jackson State, we look at, and they're all from the last 2 years, right? They're all from the last two recruiting classes. If you look at this, you see Travis Hunter, obviously at number 1, Kevin Coleman, obviously at number 2. But look at that 3 spot. That 3 spot, that's interesting. Shador at 5. So that 3 spot ain't Shador. Me, if I was just guessing, not even looking at this is all via 24/7 Sports, by the way, 24/7 Sports. That 3 spot, it's got Quay Davis right there. Travis is generational talent. Travis is the number 1 player in all of high school football. That makes sense for him to be number 1. Kevin Coleman at the Army All-American game. Kevin Coleman was down between Miami, Florida State, and all these different schools. It makes sense for him to be number 2. But that 3 spot, it's a guy that was in the class of 21 that just hasn't played. It is that guy y'all keep telling me about. Quay Davis, 6 foot, 193, almost a 200-pound receiver. Big, strong kid. I'm hearing he's pretty nice. I'm hearing he is pretty nice. Shout out to y'all. 5 class saying Quay is different. I cannot wait to see this. I cannot wait because I'd be lying if I said I've seen Quay Davis play football before. I've seen his high school tape. It's really good, but high school tape only tells me so much, especially when you're ranked really high. High school tape only tells me so much. But I'm hearing he's really like that. CFL says it too. He's like that. Everybody's telling me Quay Davis is that dude. I want to see it. I'm not saying you guys are wrong. Because everybody keeps telling me the same thing. And where there's smoke, there's typically fire. So multiple folks on multiple platforms is telling you, CFL saying he's Anquan Bolden-like. Oh my God, Anquan Bolden to go along with the speed of a guy like Kevin Coleman and to go with the other. So if you have an Anquan Bolden and a Quay Davis, and you have 6'5" Malachi Wideman, who's a bully at the line of scrimmage and in the red zone, oh my goodness. Yeah, Katron and Quay passed Shador. Yeah, last year. Yeah, Katron's right there at number 4. I'm looking at some of your comments. It says, they say he was dominant in practice. The practice footage that was leaked seems to back that up. On IG, he does nothing but hone his craft. Then add his high school footage. His high school footage is nice. His high school footage is pretty elite. It's pretty elite. So that You add some big boys in the trenches to these guys. Look at this guy. This guy smiling. You got Nugget in there. You got Trevante Rucker in there. Javante Gardner. Oh, we forgot to. And you got some of these guys have transferred out, you know. But yeah, this is going to be JSU moving forward. This is their top, 5-10 recruits of all time. And they all come within the last year. They've all been signed in the last two recruiting classes. I'm just showing some of the guys, a la Brown. We spoke about him earlier. We got some other guys that coming from the JUCO ranks. Keelan Kennedy. Yeah, man. I mean, this is going to be special to watch what JSU is able to do this fall. This O-line is going to be critical. If Jackson State plans on winning the Celebration Bowl next year, because trust me, South Carolina State ain't going nowhere. Delaware State over in the MEAC. Howard has really upgraded in the MEAC. So South Carolina State's going to have its own problems in the MEAC. And have you guys been watching to see what Hugh Jackson is doing at Grambling? Like, I know we got a lot of JSU fans in here right now. I know we got, hit the thumbs up button because we're here really heavy right now. But have you guys been watching what Hugh Jackson is doing at Grambling? Hugh Jackson is making some noise at Grambling. For all you JSU fans that think the SWAC is just going to be a cakewalk, and if you think that you're going to be able to just, cakewalk through the SWAC and just dominate everyone, first of all, you got a game September 4th or 5th down in Miami and against FAMU that might determine the whole SWAC, not just the SWAC East, but determine the whole SWAC. And then you got a team in Grambling that is reloading and grabbing kids from the West Coast. Now, someone says, have you seen the new locker room? So, yes, I have. Let me go ahead and share a picture of that. Hold on, let me pull that up. Jackson State it looks like they've upgraded and gotten a new locker room for the football team, and it looks pretty sweet. I'm not going to lie. This is what the new locker room at JSU. This picture was posted by Tiger Talk with the 1400 Club. Those guys do really good work over there. I suggest you go check them out. Tiger Talk with the 1400 Club. This is the picture. It's just one picture. It's not a lot, but it gives you a sense of what's taking place. That locker room looks sweet, y'all. I'm not going to lie. That's a sweet looking locker room. That's how the glitz and glamour. It ain't everything, but it's something. You got to have a little glitz and glamour. Yeah, so if you're the SWAC won't be a cakewalk at all. Because even a team that's supposed to be at the bottom, like a Valley, they went out and got the number 1 JUCO quarterback in the country. They brought in a recruiting class with a ton of Power 5 transfers, and they're going to be tough. Grambling, oh my God, Grambling is killing it on the recruiting trail. Grambling is killing it, but this sweet new locker room, this is real sweet. I'm not going to lie. But, I mean, someone says Kevin Coleman is the new Newman. That was one thing I was disappointed. Let me know if you guys feel the same way. One thing I was disappointed with Jackson State this past year was the lack of creativity of using Warren Newman. Warren Newman was the best punt returner in the country. Warren Newman had the quickest twitch of anybody on the team. If you're a football guy, you know what I'm talking about. Quick twitch. And I feel like they didn't get creative enough and getting him the ball in space enough. It's like, guys like Warren Newman and guys like Kevin Coleman, you will have to be able to get creative with your offense when you're playing with those type of guys. Because just having them go out there and run routes against these big corners and these big safeties and stuff, they might get lost in the mix because they're small or whatever. You got to get creative when you have your version of a Tavon Austin, or you have your version of a Tariq Cohen, or you have your version of these big-time players. And I don't think Jackson State, for whatever reason, it was a new staff or whatever, but for whatever reason, they didn't get creative enough, I felt like, with Warren Newman. That was just my thoughts. How do you guys feel? Do you guys feel the same way? Yeah, they could have used more screens. They could have did more trip sets, reverses. What's those jet sweeps? A lot more jet sweeps. A lot of stuff like that. I wanted to see more because Warren Newman, every time he touched the ball, it was electrifying. The man is dynamite. The young man is a beast. Like, teams stopped kicking it to him in punt return for good reason. But every time he touched the ball, it was like, oh my God, what is he going to do next? And he was one of the only few like explosive players on Jackson State. They made explosive plays, throwing it deep to Keith Corbin was more of a possession receiver, but he can make some plays. Malachi Wideman obviously made some big plays, but we're talking about explosion as far as speed. You didn't see a lot of that with the JSU offense last year. You didn't see a lot of that with the JSU offense. Now, someone says Prime is making a West Coast connection too. I see some ballers from the West Coast. See, if the HBCUs, the SWAC, MEAC, Prime, Grambling, whoever, they're able to pull some, they got some studs out there in California. There are some thoroughbred horses, quite literally, out there in California, whether it's in the LA area, Northern California, the Bay Area. Like, there is an untapped market out there for JSU, for the SWAC to go out and get some players. You guys, dropping so many comments. It's hard to, I'm trying to see. It said, I want to see JSU in the FCS national. So, okay, so for this, D, I'm going to go ahead and address that. If JSU does what they're supposed to do, you'll never see that. And the reason why you'll never see that is because the SWAC and the MEAC came to an agreement to play the Celebration Bowl for their champions as opposed to going to the FCS playoff. So the team that goes to the FCS playoff would be a team that didn't make it to the Celebration Bowl. So that's why you saw FAMU get an at-large bid to the FCS playoff, because the FCS playoff doesn't bring them any money. The Celebration Bowl brings in a ton of money as far as revenue. The FCS playoff does not. And I've explained this before, but when you go to the FCS playoff, what a lot of people don't understand, it's not like the college football playoff you see on television with Alabama and Georgia. The FCS playoff, the school actually has to provide everything. You provide transportation, you provide hotel and stay, meals, etc., etc. Only thing you get is the exposure on ESPN, but that's it. And because you're coming from a conference like the SWAC or the MEAC, and you're traveling to a North Dakota State, which is in North Dakota, or traveling to a Sam Houston or wherever he's placed, you're traveling a great distance. And it's just the MEAC commissioner, who just recently retired, he's like, yo, that's not worth it. And he said it took him 10 years to convince the SWAC commissioner, the SWAC participants, and all the MEAC participants to create the Celebration Bowl. And it's been going 7-8 years strong now. So that's why you'll never see JSU. If it's up to them, you'll never see them in an FCS championship, simply for that reason. I'm going to take a few more of these guys, and then we're going to get out of here. Someone says Coleman's going to pick up the slack. I hope so. They got to get creative with Coleman. Coleman is dynamic. The man is dynamite. He's just like Warren Newman. He's dynamite. Hit the thumbs up button in here too, guys. We're in here really heavy, by the way. Thank you all so much for your participation. But he's dynamite. He is dynamite. He is someone that I think that they got to get creative when getting him the ball, especially with all these big receivers. JSU's got a ton of big receivers. And if Travis Hunter plays a little bit of receiver, they get even bigger. Whereas Coleman is one of the smaller guys, but he is explosive. He is literally walking 80-yard touchdown. He is a walking 80-yard touchdown. So they got to get creative with him. It says Coleman was JSU's cheetah from, and even with Tyreek Hill. Before Tyreek Hill became the elite receiver, he was not a gadget guy, but he was someone that the offense had to get creative. And the Chiefs still get creative with Tyreek Hill because he is so dangerous. They have to get creative with motions. They have to get creative with jet sweeps, with reverses, with moving him all around the field just so teams can't key in on him. I think you have to do the same thing with a guy like Kevin Coleman because he is too explosive to not get the ball in his hands. This can't be creative. We can't keep people out of the backfield. Need the heavies to block. And that's why this recruiting class, you're absolutely right, Junior D. And that is why this recruiting class with these 10 offensive linemen, shout out to CFL told us, 10 offensive linemen is key because you're going to have to find that right combination of 5 or 6 guys because with offensive linemen, it's only 5 that start, but you need a legit 8 that can play. You need a legit 8 that can play because someone always gets hurt. These are the trenches. These are the big uglies. Even in the NFL, the trenches guys get hurt. So we got any Cowboys fans in the building? You guys see what's happening, what's going on with Tyron Smith? He gets hurt a lot. Why? Because he plays in the trenches. You guys watched the Super Bowl last year? What happened to the Kansas City Chiefs? What's the number one reason why the Kansas City Chiefs lost the Super Bowl last year? It's because their offensive lineman got hurt. So you gotta get plenty, not just one or two, but plenty of offensive linemen to come in there and play. It says EMCC got a new stadium 3 years after they got a new coach and started winning. Hey, stadium talk is already on the tables at Jackson State. I can tell you that. I know that. Stadium talk, a new stadium, whether it's renovations or whatever, stadium talks are definitely in the talks at Jackson State. You see the locker room. We're looking at the brand new locker room. Stadium talks is definitely in the works. That's what happens when Coleman get a punt return. He can't miss. Yeah, Coleman's going to be a beast. Somebody said, let's call it Prime Stadium. I like it. I like it. Texas, see, they've got great picking up O-line, D-lineman. Yeah, no, the D-line reload. The D-line reload is real because you got to think. It's not going to be, you don't think that one player is going to be able to replace the production that James Houston put up. Like James and Antoine Owen. Like you got two of the most productive players on your defensive line. They're now moving on to the NFL. So you got to replace between James Houston and Antoine Owen, you're looking at almost 40 tackles for loss. So this is real stats. Almost 40 tackles for loss gone out the door and over 25 sacks. So 25 sacks and 40 tackles for loss, like that's a lot to replace. And that's a lot to ask for, even two guys. You might need 3 or 4 guys to try to replace that production. And that is because that is a ton of production you're looking to replace. It says, I was forwarded Prime's information on West Coast football. Hey, and another thing, I wanted to show you guys this too. You guys are flooding the comments. I love it so much. I wanted to show you guys this too, because this is big too, because it's always good to keep tabs on your coach and what he's talking about. So if you look at Coach Prime's tweets, one tweet in particular that really stood out to me. This tweet really stood out to me. So this tweet was put up by, I guess, a fan or somebody just like us. They like Jackson State. It said, let's look at the tweet. It says, boy, if Deion Sanders hosted a 7-on-7 at Jackson State this summer, that thing would be swole. People around the college football world would lose their minds. And I'm like, yo, that's a really good tweet. Coach Prime actually responds to that tweet and says this. He says, we are, brother. The day after our camp, stay tuned. Now, just imagine the skill guys that are going to come up to Jackson, Mississippi for this. The skill guys, you guys remember the Jackson State football camp last year and who was there? Terrell Owens, Tyrann Mathieu, Demario Davis. All those guys showed up to Jackson State football camp last year. And that was after a mediocre spring season. That was before the Travis Hunters. That was before the Kevin Colemans. That was before going 11-2. That was before winning the SWAC East. That was before winning the SWAC Championship. That was before playing in the Celebration Bowl. All of that was before, and you got big dogs like T.O. and Tyrann Mathieu and Demario Davis. That was before Eddie George was the coach at TSU. That was before Hugh Jackson became the head coach of Grambling. Imagine what's about to show up to Jackson, Mississippi now. Imagine, can we talk about it? Can we really talk about it? Like, folks, that's what they were able to do before the proof was in the pudding. That was before the proof was in the pudding. Oh my goodness. Let's see. It was another tweet. He might have deleted it. Coach Prime might have deleted. There was another tweet. Oh, these are my favorite. He puts these kind of tweets out all the time, tweets and Instagram posts like this. These are my favorite. My favorite when he does these right here. He says this. He says, for all the players that recently jumped in the portal, I ain't hard to find. I ain't hard to find. Now, and Troy Aikman and all those guys showed up to games. Gillian Wallow, Troy Aikman, Leon, all these guys showed up to games. We talking about the folks that showed up to a football camp. Ain't no game being played. Sonic Boom ain't playing at the football camp. 50, 60,000 ain't in the stadiums at a football camp. Them folks showed up to a football camp. Now, for those of you in the chat, we're live. We have a bunch of people watching right now. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button. But for those of you in the chat right now, we're looking at this tweet from Coach Prime. Comment in the chat and in the comments, who do you all believe? What player in the transfer portal do you want to see as a Jackson State Tiger this fall? What player on the offense, not on the offensive line, in the transfer portal right now that you want to see at JSU this fall? I'm curious. I'm curious to see what folks are thinking. I want to see some of your comments, and then I'm going to show you this thing, and I'm going to get out of here because you guys have been too great with me. We've been awesome in here. We got a lot of people listening. I'm going to show you this though. I am going to show you one thing that might make you mad, might make you sad, you might love it, might use it as motivation. But what player do you want to see at Jackson State that is currently in the portal right now? Who is a player? Who's a player do you want to say? Drew Sanders. Who is Drew Sanders? I'm curious about that. It was a 4-star kicker. So I'm looking at, they should get Drew Sanders. Let's see. So I see they should get Drew Sanders. Let's see. And a 4-star kicker. I'm seeing a lot of Drew Sanders. I don't know who Drew Sanders is. Alabama offensive lineman that just entered. That's a good one. There's a cornerback from LSU, McGuthrin, who played for JSU in high school. I think he'd be a good fit. That'd be interesting. Everyone should flood Drew Sanders Twitter. Yeah, go do that. That'll help. Hey, folks see that. When you guys go and mention them on Twitter with the good stuff, they see that. Drew is a 5-star from Alabama. Thank you guys for filling me in. All right, so Drew Sanders looks to be everybody's number one pick for who they believe Coach Prime should go give a phone call to. I'm going to show you guys this one last graphic, and then I'm going to get out of here. But thank you all for tapping in with me. We've had a great live. But I do got to show you this. Some of you JSU fans might like it, might hate it, might be whatever. But I posted this on my YouTube. My YouTube is Jeff Lightsy Jr. You can subscribe right there and hit the notification bell. But I posted this on my YouTube. I said the G-men in Tennessee State lead the way as the HBCU programs with the most NFL draft picks. Jackson State coming in third. How will this graphic look 5 years from now? So let's look at this graphic. Think about this. So think in your brain. 5 years from now is 2027. How would this graphic look? We got 129 players from Grambling. They lead the way. The HBCUs with the top most draft picks. Tennessee State University is 121. Jackson State's a distant third. Grambling and TSU pretty close at 129 and 121. Jackson State's a distant third, and an even more distant fourth is Southern. Then you got FAMU, South Carolina State, who's been gaining some ground and has some big-time players. Alcorn, Texas Southern, North Carolina Central, North Carolina A&T. So, if you guys, just with all, we got a bunch of you in here right now. How will this graphic look in 5 years? Leave your thoughts in the chat. Leave your thoughts in the comments. How will this graphic look in 5 years? For those you can't see it, make sure, let me remove my little name tag. How will this graphic look? How will it look in 5 years? I'm going to put me small. These are the top 10 HBCUs and their draft selections in the NFL draft. Now, these don't always mean the guy who got drafted made the roster. It just means you got drafted. That's all it's going by. How will this look in 5 years? In 5 years, how will this graphic look? Jackson State. Some of y'all saying Jackson State going to be number one. Jackson State got to put over 20 more dudes. Really, you got to put like 30 more dudes in the NFL over the next 5 years. Not put them in the NFL. I'll take that back. You got to have like 30 more dudes be drafted over the course of the next 5 years if you want to catch Grambling. Because Grambling's going to get a couple more dudes in there in the next 5 years, by the way. Like, we ain't just going to act like this is going like the G-men ain't just going to just lay down and say, okay, Jackson State, we'll let you pass us on the NFL draft ranks. No. The G-men going to have something to say. So I'm going to read your comments. I'm saying, you guys are saying it's going to be in the thousands. It says JSU will be number one in 5 years. It's a bold statement because JSU got a lot of climbing to make. They had to climbing a lot. JSU won. Okay, I like this answer. This is John. This is pretty realistic. JSU won 14 in 5 years. So you think 8 players from Jackson State will get drafted in the next 5 years? That's pretty realistic. I like the way that's said. That's a good answer. That's a pretty good answer. Grambling first, but JSU gaining a lot of ground a second. That's a pretty good answer too. That's a pretty good answer too. Let's see what else. Jackson State will definitely close the gap. Hopefully, Prairie View can get on the map with Bubba McDowell. Bubba McDowell talked about it. I think Bubba McDowell can be a good coach. I just said it wasn't a sexy hire. People didn't like when I said that, but it wasn't a sexy hire. You know, it is what it is. It says, I think Grambling and a lot of their other schools, if they have an average year, I think a lot of those kids will definitely leave Grambling. I don't see Grambling having an average year, and I don't see kids just up and leaving Grambling with Coach Hugh Jackson, especially just after his first year. I mean, so this fall season will be just his first year. So I think we gotta, I don't think folks are just gonna get up and leave. GSU was a football factory at one point. You're right about that. Coach Eddie Robinson had them folks churning out. So that's what's going on with that. But that's all I have today, guys. It's been an hour. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Once again, my name is Jeff Lightsy Jr. with the Black Boss Channel. Subscribe to the Black Boss Channel. We're right there. And also my YouTube channel, Jeff Lightsy Jr. Jeff Lightsy Jr. for all your HBCU football needs. I'm expanding to the MEAC soon, and I'm going to bring you guys some special guests. So be sure to hit that notification bell to get all the alerts when I go live. Thank you so much. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button before you exit, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.